You've been watching the first hearing in the House impeachment inquiry into President Biden. We just heard opening remarks and a few questions of today's witnesses, including 2 law professors, a former attorney general, and a forensic accountant. ABC News Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas is joining me now, along with ABC's Jay O'Brien, senior reporter Catherine Faulders on Capitol Hill, ABC News political director Rick Klein, and ABC News White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks. Pierre, there were a lot of questions going into this as to whether Republicans had enough evidence to even bring this inquiry to begin with. How do you think they've done presenting that so far?
Well, I think right now, as we watch this hearing unfold, we all will just have to wait and see. There were not a lot of specifics today in terms of specific criminal acts by Joe Biden, and therein lies the challenge. We'll have to wait and see whether they can get there or not. I do think that one of the things that we should point out for the audience is the following. There have been a lot of allegations made about the Justice Department and David Weiss, who is now the special counsel investigating Hunter Biden, in terms of whether he went soft or whether he somehow has been trying to give a break to Hunter Biden. And I think in fairness to the process, we have to present to our viewers and listeners that David Weiss is a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney who investigated Hunter Biden for 5 years. He was allowed to stay on under the Justice Department headed by Merrick Garland because Merrick Garland said, I don't want any sense that we're interfering in the investigation. David Weiss has entered testimony or sent letters to Capitol Hill, to House Republicans and others saying the investigation has gone precisely the way he has wanted it to by and large, and that the DOJ headquarters, specifically the Attorney General, has not interfered. So that's where we are. The question is, will there be specific, credible allegations that are tangible that would result in high crimes and misdemeanors? That's what we're waiting to see.
Catherine, what do you make of the witness testimony so far from these 2 law professors? Jonathan Turley saying that the evidence so far wouldn't be enough to impeach, but that it is enough for an inquiry, while Michael Gerhardt is saying it's not even enough for an inquiry, and that the burden of proof has shifted to trying to force the president to prove his innocence versus trying to prove his guilt.
Yeah, well, Pierre's last comment there, whether the evidence, this alleged evidence, rises to misdemeanors and high crimes, is an important point because Republicans' own witness, they have 3 witnesses here, and Democrats have 1, but Jonathan Turley is a constitutional law scholar. You've seen him appear at impeachment hearings in the past for former President Trump. He essentially said, as you mentioned, that he believes that there is enough, quote-unquote, evidence there to launch an impeachment inquiry, but not to bring articles of impeachment, he says. And we've heard Republicans say, allege that President Biden has lied, for example. We heard Turley, the Republicans' own witness, say that lying isn't necessarily an impeachable offense. He said, all presidents lie. Those were Turley's words. So the Republicans' own witness, they don't think that there is yet enough evidence for any sort of vote, for example, on articles of impeachment. I've been talking to some Republicans privately, and you've even heard some Republicans on the record criticize this inquiry that McCarthy has announced, saying that they should be focusing on different things, saying that the evidence just isn't there. And Republicans privately will say that there aren't enough votes. They don't have the votes to even bring an article or articles of impeachment, for example. Some are predicting that this never even goes to the floor for a vote. So there will be more hearings, I'm told by sources. This, of course, is the first one. But so far, no new evidence presented here in this hearing today.
Mary Alice, how is the White House and President Biden reacting to all of this?
Yeah, the White House has put out a series of statements so far, Diane, all of them exactly 30 minutes apart. They are essentially making a mockery of this hearing and saying there is a much bigger issue at foot. Every one of these statements say there is exactly 61 hours and 25 minutes. The most recent one saying exactly 60 hours until the government shuts down, according to this statement, because of, quote, extreme House Republicans' chaos and inability to govern. It goes on to say nothing can distract from that. That is the message from the White House today. The Republicans aren't doing their basic job of working on funding the government, and that they're putting important government programs at risk. The risk of troops having to work without pay, disaster relief being delayed. The White House says that that is the fundamental job of government, and they're not doing their work. But it was interesting, Diane, listening to the Democrats there, Raskin in particular. He's saying that it's not only a distraction from the work of funding the government, but that this hearing has the potential to distract from what Democrats, of course, see as much bigger offenses from former President Trump. You heard him there basically trying to call out Republicans for both sidesism, trying to equate somehow through innuendo that there's some issue with the Biden family, when what Raskin was saying was that there is documented, in his mind, documented evidence of wrongdoing from former President Trump related to January 6th and other offenses. Diane.
Rick, this is all happening on the heels of the second Republican presidential debate. We are obviously in the middle of campaign season. What are the political repercussions here?
It came up almost not at all last night, which is surprising, particularly for the focus on the economy. The history of government shutdowns in recent years has been very bad for Republicans, and I think the folks on the right know that as well. This Hunter Biden issue that is being wrapped up in the impeachment inquiry, though, is a very real issue that you're going to hear Republicans talk about. No matter what ends up happening with impeachment or not, it's going to be a major talking point in the campaign against Biden. And for all of the disagreements we saw on stage among those Republicans last night, they're fairly united in saying that what happened with the payments that Hunter Biden got deserve more explanation. Now, the question of an impeachment inquiry and whether you go to a full-blown impeachment is something else. We heard some reference to the Bill Clinton impeachment. That is remembered mostly for the backlash against Republicans. It seemed to rally support to Bill Clinton to have this. So to Mary Alice's point about the way that the Democrats are using this to highlight the potential government shutdown, these issues will become intertwined. And barring a lot more evidence, frankly, than we've seen this morning, it's hard to see how this advances to an actual impeachment vote, much less anything approaching impeachment and removal of the president. So this will be something that plays out quite a bit. It's certainly something that Republicans are dialed into, including those presidential candidates. But the White House views it as something they can turn to a political advantage to highlight the kind of MAGA extremism that President Biden has talked so much about, if not even the themes of democracy that he's talking about later today.
Jay, we heard Congressman Raskin suggest that Republicans are just following former President Trump's marching orders, pointing to two social media posts, one about getting the government shut down to delay his prosecutions, and then another talking about impeaching President Biden because, quote, they did it to us. So Republicans are coming to the table saying they have real questions about the president and his activities here. So what's the overall goal of this hearing?
Well, the stated goal of this hearing, Diane, has really been to, as Republicans put it, justify why they should have this impeachment inquiry in the first place. Remember, these investigations in various House committees into President Biden have been going on for months, and only in recent weeks have they been unified under this umbrella of an impeachment inquiry. And the stated goal from Republicans, Speaker McCarthy has said this himself, is to use this impeachment inquiry to find more evidence on President Biden. It's very much, as Rachel Scott put it earlier in the day, a fact-finding expedition here. And you can tell in these questions to the witnesses that they are looking to justify, Republicans are, why this inquiry exists in the first place. You even heard Chairman Comer ask one of the witnesses, should we subpoena Hunter Biden's bank records? Shoulds and coulds and woulds, and will we do this? It's all an attempt, as Republicans put it, to justify why they're here in the first place.
All right, Jay O'Brien, Pierre Thomas, Catherine Faulders, Rick Klein, and Mary Alice Parks, thank you all.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.